I want to start by thanking those of you who've written to me about these short films. Really appreciate the feedback. It's really a chance for me to connect with you other than through paper and email in a much more direct way. Today we're talking about transport, and we've come back to the housing estate I grew up on in Lawrence Weston, standing on a bus stop, and the two things come together like this. I grew up in a flat just on that last block, which is just down the road there. This bus stop, which was actually about 20 metres back down there, was my connection to life in Bristol. I was young. I was 4 to 6 years old living down here with just my mum, but I was acutely aware of life in Bristol taking place without me. I felt like I was on the periphery of things. Even as a young boy, I could feel these things. I maybe didn't have words for them, but I knew what was going on. The bus service into central Bristol was a critical part of me feeling part of the city, me connecting with my family. My nan lived on Stapleton Road. The bus number 23, as I remember it, went right from here to Stapleton Road at that time, over the downs and so forth. It was critical. And that's why I'm worried today about people who may face those same challenges. People who can't afford the bus fares that we have now that are very high, or people who are losing bus routes, or the connections aren't there for them, feeling locked out of the city, feeling disconnected. An effective public transport system, an effective transport system in general across the city is critical for connecting people to people and people to opportunities. That's why, if I'm elected as mayor, from day one I was set about establishing an integrated transport authority to bring our transport plans for Bristol together, for Greater Bristol. It means resetting our relationship with our neighbouring authorities, coming up with a joint plan. They are part of this as well. We cannot do this as just an urban city of Bristol here in the middle. It has to be integrated and it has to be joined up with the surrounding areas. It means talking with organisations like FOSBRA and the bold and ambitious plans they have for the metro system for Greater Bristol. It means talking to Sustrans. It means talking to Campaign for Better Transport. All these organisations have to be at the table in Bristol as we try to work this out, along with representatives from our communities, particularly those who live on the estates on the edge of Bristol, those so easily locked out and left behind by astronomical transport prices. It also means talking to our unions like the RMT and Unite. We will not solve this unless people who work in transport are working with members of the general public and working with the transport professionals, as it were, to come up with solutions, particularly as we face the devastating impact of the cuts on the services in Bristol, just like cuts across the rest of the country they're facing right now. We have to be working together to come up with joint solutions. It's also going to be critical that we develop a city voice on this issue. There may be times when we need to go to London to lobby for more finance to make up for these cuts or to fend off cuts. There may be times when we have to go to London to ask for more power. There are things that we will need to get done that will require us to be able to do more things locally. And by working together, we can work out what the agenda needs to be. We can work out what the challenges and the blockages will be. And then we will go to London and we will make our case. I'd say also that when we think about transport, we're not just thinking about what goes on inside the Greater Bristol boundary, as it were. We're thinking about Bristol's positioning in the country, in Europe, and around the world. Unless we think about the connections of our city to that wider landscape, we risk the city ending up on the economic periphery, missing some of those global opportunities that will come on in this ever dynamic and changing global economy. It's critical we're thinking ahead. And not just in terms of 5 years, 10 years, but just like when we think about our job strategy, we need to be thinking about 40 years, 50 years. This is a big plan, it needs to be bold, it needs to be forward-thinking, and we need to develop it together with all the key stakeholders around the table. Nothing else will be successful. And I'd love to work with you to make this happen.